Welcome back to another episode of the Lead with Levity podcast, where we help you build 12 superpowers so that you can live and lead a life full of joy, success, and lead it in a very authentic way. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Walker, and today I have a question for you. Have you ever wondered how you can transform an average performance into something truly extraordinary? Average performance into extraordinary success. Well, our guest today has just that. He's none other than Dr. Shaan Patel, the founder and CEO of Prep Expert. You might have recognized him from Shark Tank, where his innovative education company known as Prep Expert caught the attention of investors and students alike. Prep Expert has helped over 100,000 students, yes, up their game in their SAT and ACT scores. And his journey is really a testament to the power of perseverance and expertise. He took the SATs way back in the day when he was a student, and he was able to take his score from what he calls average to a perfect score. And that is something that is truly extraordinary. So we're going to pick his brain today, and we're going to find out a little bit more about his life. What is it like to do the things that he does? What kind of mindset does he bring to it? What kind of actions did he take? What did he do to make that possible for himself? There's some lessons learned there that we can take back for ourselves personally. Parents, if you're out there, there's some stuff in here for you if you have any high schoolers or people who are of college age, grad school age, and you're thinking about how can I support my people? Leaders, there's something in here for you as well, because we're also going to be talking about a scenario, and I'm going to get Dr. Patel's advice, guidance, and really asking him how would he approach a particular situation. We have a new manager named Jonathan he just inherited this team, and he's trying to figure out what can they do? What are their strengths? Where do they need to improve? How can I help them? And I see Dr. Patel as someone who is in the human potential business. So I'm looking forward to hearing his suggestions on what you can do to find that potential in the people that are on your team so that you can support them. That's a lot to say. I said a lot. Get ready for an enlightening conversation that will hopefully leave you inspired as well as equipped to figure out what can I do to support myself and the people around me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this interview with Dr. Patel.
It's time for a sneak peek. Sneak peek, sneak peek.
You've got to have fun while you're doing it, and you got to get to know the other humans on your team and be there for them and understand what's going on in their lives, because honestly, it creates for not only a better company culture, but people are happier and more productive at work. And so really, really important, that human component.
And now on with the show.
When you're feeling the pressure, take a moment to step back, pick up your marbles, and choose to lead with levity. Join us on the Lead with Levity podcast for fireside chats that will fill your bucket and help you get back to being the leader you were meant to be. Now here's your host, Dr. Heather Walker.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Lead with Levity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Walker, and I am super, super excited about this next conversation that we're about to bring to you. So our next guest is Dr. Shaan Patel. This man he's a doctor. You know, I'm a doctor, but I'm not that kind of doctor. He's a doctor, and he also has an MBA. He's the founder and CEO of Prep Expert. You may have seen him on Shark Tank, and his claim to fame on Shark Tank is actually that he's helped over 100,000 1,000 students improve their SAT and ACT scores. In fact, we're going to dig into this. He was actually able to supposedly, and Dr. Patel, you need to let me know if this is real or not, take his average score to a perfect score. Is that real?
That's real.
Oh, whoa. Okay. We're going to ask about that. All right. And he was also named in Inc. magazine's 30 Under 30. He's got a couple degrees, y'all. He's gone to Yale. He's gone to the University of Southern California. And he is going to help us get our stuff together so that we can get farther faster. So Dr. Patel, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Heather. Thanks for having me. Excited to be on the podcast and hopefully share some insights that are going to be helpful for the listeners.
Yes. Okay, so it sounds like your journey with this organization that you have with Prep Expert has sort of been a long journey for you. It started back in school. Is that right?
Yeah, so I started my company Prep Expert when I was in college, actually. So I taught my very first 6-week SAT course to about 18 students. And I thought it was just going to be a summer thing I did one time. But what ended up happening is the students had amazing score improvements. They had an average score improvement of 376 points for their
Wow.
SAT scores. Yeah, it was equivalent of taking a student from the 50th percentile and putting them in the 90th percentile. And so I had parents and students who were kind of knocking my door down for more courses. So I began training other instructors to teach my curriculum. And it's been 13 years now. And yeah, that's how we've helped over 100,000 students over 13 years improve their test scores, get into top colleges. Most importantly to me, win over $100 million in college scholarships to help reduce their student debt and loans and all that.
Amen. Amen to that. Bless you, sir.
Yes.
So,
no one likes
Dr.
that.
Patel, did I hear you correctly that you actually taught these classes while you were in college yourself?
Yeah. So I originally, to your point, I changed my own life from going from average to perfect, spent hundreds of hours in the library studying. And so I developed this curriculum and I just wanted to write a test prep book. I was like, I'll put it out in college. Be the first SAT prep book by a perfect scorer. I ended up getting rejected 100 times. 100 literary agents and publishers said, there's no platform. It's too competitive a market. You're not the right person to write this book. So I ended up taking all that curriculum and I said, okay, I'll teach courses. And it was just supposed to be a one-time summer thing between my end of college to going into medical school. And so I ended up going to medical school because I just thought this is going to be a side hustle. It's not going to be anything that grows, but it just kept growing and growing. And so I did medical school and then I took 2 years off to do my MBA at Yale when I saw that it was taking off. During my MBA, that's when I pitched it on Shark Tank. And then I still completed dermatology residency and I still practice actually, but I only do teledermatology. And that allows me to have the flexibility to run my company as a CEO, as well as still keep my diagnostic skills and licensing up as a board certified dermatologist.
Wow. That is an amazing story. And my mind is going into so many different directions. Teledermatology, quick departure. You are looking at people's skin on Zoom?
Yeah, well, it's either usually on video or on pictures. So I usually be able to tell what a rash is, what kind of rash it is, diagnosed and treated literally through photo. I'm like a radiologist for skin is what I call myself.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. That I had questions. I had to go there mentally. I'm back. Heather's back. Okay. How did you get to the point where you were able to get to a perfect SAT score for yourself? Was it just that you read books or, what is the secret sauce there?
Yeah. I mean, I always say with any type of test preparation, whether was my SAT, whether it was my MCAT, my GMAT, my USMLE, I've taken a lot of standardized tests. There's really two key things you need to do. One is you have to get your hands on as many official practice tests as possible. So don't go to third party companies like Barron's, Princeton Review, Kaplan. Go to the test maker, right? So who makes the SAT? It's the College Board. So when I was in high school, I got my hands on probably 20, I took 20 to 30 official practice exams, but it's not enough
Wow.
just to have exams. You've got to review why you're getting things right and wrong. You've got to practice applying strategies. So I had a ton of strategy books. I kept what's called my own insight notebook on like what was going through my head when I got a question wrong and what was going through my head when I got a question right. And that's actually what ended up turning into my book and my curriculum. It was that insight notebook that was so helpful for me because it kind of got into my own mind. And I was an average test taker, a lot of test anxiety, average score on the first exam. So I think that's what helps a lot of other students because my curriculum is based on that. It's based on how does an average student think about the test and how should you reconfigure your approach? Yeah. And so that's a lot of what we teach.
Yeah. And one thing that strikes me in your story is most people would just stop and say, okay, well, I'm average. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to keep it moving with my average score. And you said, no, I can do better than this. I can figure this out. I'm going to even potentially gamify this, And there's a little bit of a growth mindset in there. And I'm wondering, how did that skill set that you developed, how does that translate into Dr. Patel, the business leader?
Oh, so much. I attribute a lot of my success today as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, to what I learned when I was in high school doing this studying. And so, what do I mean by that? I mean, first of all, I had to have a lot of delayed gratification. I had to have a lot of self control. I had to learn how to work hard. I had to learn about time management. I mean, these are all skills that, although they were applicable at the time only to one test and studying, they can make you success. They do make the most successful business leaders who they are when they can practice those skills effectively. Goal setting was huge. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned was I kept working at it. And the reason I worked at it is because I had internal motivation. I had specific medical programs I wanted to get into that had certain SAT scores. So that was internal motivation. I always tell students, you need to have internal motivation rather than external motivation like your parents. That doesn't usually work that well if your parent wants you to do well and you don't want to do well yourself. But it's the same thing in business. You've got to have internal motivation, internal goals and KPIs as a business leader under why you want to hit these for your organization and for yourself and for your team. And so it translates literally one to one from academic studying to business leadership and culture.
One thing that I've recognized, and I keep hearing it, like this is every day, almost every meeting. I'm meeting with these leaders who are they're on it and they're used to being on it, but the strategies that they used before are burning them out and they might not even realize how close they are to burnout. And have you noticed a change in the pace of work? I'm easing us into a conversation about how you have maybe delivered superhuman progress yourself, but let's start with the pace of work. Have you noticed a change?
Absolutely. I think about this more recently, to your point, almost on a daily basis, because I think what happened with COVID is once we all, or not all, but many people went to remote work, everyone thought it's great, work from home, so much easier, et cetera. And it is. There are so many benefits to work from home. I personally love it. My company's totally remote. We got rid of our headquarters. However, it's hard for high achievers, people with superpowers, people listening to this, to turn off, right? So logging off at 5 p.m. and saying, okay, I'm not going to check my email or respond to emails after 5 p.m. because there's not that clear kind of separation between work and home anymore. And so that can cause people to burn out because now you're responding and you're checking stuff at 8, 9, 10 p.m. at night. And then you're back at it at, 8 a.m. the next day. And so I think that has been one of the reasons that people who work from home specifically can sometimes get more burnt out. And you would think it would be the opposite, right? You would think
Mm.
that if you're working from home, you should have a lot more flexibility, and you do, of course. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the second piece of that would be just being able to manage your time effectively, right? You've got to say, okay, I'm going to work 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. I'm going to take a 1 hour lunch break, not a 3 hour lunch break. And then you've got a bunch of stuff to do in the evening, and it's hard to catch up.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is going back to that, what you said about internal motivation. It's not that they're not motivated. They are super motivated. They're always thinking about maybe I can check one more email. Maybe I can get to one more thing. Maybe I actually just purchased something and I have it right in front of me on my desk. And it says, let whatever you do today be enough, as a
Mm,
reminder that guess what? You are a rock star and you do a lot all the time. And it's okay to say, you know what? I need a little bit of time for myself. It's 5 o'clock. I think it's okay for me to go rest, walk around the block, or do something else today.
yeah, I love that. I'll have to get one of those myself because I always feel like I have a checklist and you can never get through it, but at least as long as I'm making positive progress that day, I think that is enough.
All right. So, for the $1,000,000 question for today, what tips do you have for us to help us all make superhuman progress in our lives?
Okay, so superhuman progress. I don't know if I qualify as superhuman, but I'll try my best. So when it comes to superhuman progress, how I think that you can be more productive than 80, 90% of the other people out there. One of the concrete tips I can give anyone is start with what I call a morning power hour. So what I mean by that is I usually try to block out the first hour at least of my day to do the most difficult task on my to-do list. That means that
Mm.
what's the most difficult task? It's usually the one that requires the most mental concentration, the most effort. For me, it's usually writing curriculum or writing book content. Maybe it's a blog post. For you, it might be something else. Maybe it's actually working on podcasts, etc. But try not to do really low hanging fruit activities in the morning. For example, just responding back to emails or sitting in a meeting. Those things are really easy to do. So I try to reserve those things for later on in the day if I can.
When your energy might be a little bit lower. Yeah,
Yeah,
for your
yeah. Like
mental energy.
if I've had 7 to 8 hours of good sleep, it's just amazing how much different my mind is, like fresh, wired, ready to, do something difficult. And if people listening don't know what task that is, it's probably the task that you're procrastinating on. It's the task that you
Mhm.
really don't want to do. That's the task you
Yeah.
should do first. And what ends up happening is, from a superhuman progress perspective, when you get that hardest task done, every other task seems so much easier during the day because it's like, I already did the hardest thing. So then the next task is easier. The next task is easier. The next task is easier. And if you can structure your day that way, I think you will be on a unstoppable path to superhuman progress.
I love the idea of how could you be going back to the SAT concept and percentiles and everything. How can I just make sure that I'm one or two steps ahead of the majority of the population? I don't have to be Superman or some alien from some other world. I just need to know what might help me be above average, right?
Yeah.
And a little bit further ahead. Yeah. Yeah. That's one reframe I think that could help some people as well. So, when you strike me as the kind of person who, once you have a goal in mind and a plan, you don't stop. You go after it. Is that correct?
I would say you did a pretty quick psychoanalysis. Yeah, that's probably correct. Yeah.
what kind of effect do you think that has had on your team? Like, as you started building this organization, Prep Expert, and you said it started as this little teeny tiny startup, and now you've got a team. You've got a team, and you're all working remotely. How has that style influenced how you build culture and any lessons that you've learned?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, I've had this company for 13 years. So it went from a single person, me, bootstrap startup to now we have 80 plus between tutors, operations, customer service, sales, tech people. So it's much larger organization. To your point, the culture still starts with me, the founder or the leader in the organization. And so to answer your question directly, my original approach of not stopping and
Mhm.
working all the time, I would say did not trickle well into a company culture. On in the company, we actually had a lot of departures. People wouldn't stay for very long because they got burnt out to your point. And so I
Mm.
realized that that is something that I made a mistake on. And one of the best things I did was get a business coach and chief of staff who had a lot more experience than me and brought them on the company and to help us revamp our company culture. And one of the key things he's done is basically taking me or taking a step back with me to look at how I work and realize that that's not how everyone works. And so we have a pretty structured format now in terms of our project management, where we have reasonable goals and we review them on a quarterly basis. Usually we're in really good shape, and people, what we find, are much happier when there's clear deliverables and it's manageable as well at the same time.
Yes. And so it sounds like you kind of had to take a step back and say, wait a second, there's something in the way that I'm navigating this that is not helping the culture where I want this culture to go, where I want this organization to go. I think that's a really important message for people to hear, because even though we're all trying to figure out how do we navigate all of these challenges that we're facing, there's still people that we have to work with. And I just had a conversation with someone on my team earlier today, and he said that what's interesting is that sometimes people will come into a meeting and they won't even acknowledge, like, hey, how are you today? And wait
Mm.
and pause. It's straight into the business, because we feel like we don't have time. We've got these 30-minute meetings and they're back to back to back. And so once you get into it, you've got that rhythm going. But we don't recognize, wait a second, there's a person on the other side of this, and I'm missing so much information that they might be willing to share with me if I would only take the time to get to know them a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Everyone's trying to be efficient these days, be superhuman, make that super productivity. But at the end of the day, you got to take a step back. And I had to do this myself in my company. It's like, what are we doing this for? We're doing it, sure, to drive revenue, but it's also, you've got to have fun while you're doing it. And you
Mm.
got to get to know the other humans on your team and be there for them and understand what's going on in their lives, because honestly, it creates for not only a better company culture, but people are happier and more productive at work. And so really, really important, that human component that you just touched on.
Yeah, yeah. And so where does play and fun and levity come in when you're thinking about your business and how you navigate work?
Yeah. So I think there's two aspects to it. So from a business perspective, what we usually try to do is, because we're all remote, a lot of times people will log into meetings 10 minutes early to do
Mhm.
exactly what you just said, which is just to
Mm.
catch up with each other's lives. And I have to give my team a lot of credit for this. They started initiating it on their own. But what I find is everyone gels so much better when they have a little bit of time to chat with each other about everything non-work related, et cetera, and what's going on in people's lives. So that's really just a small thing anyone can implement. It's just like 5, 10 minutes before the meeting, log in and have some fun. Two is because we're all remote, we also try to meet up once a month for most of us are our headquarters where I'm from in Las Vegas, Nevada. So most of us are still there. And so we usually try to meet up for lunch or dinner and have a company kind of get together because there is something about an in-person kind of experience that I think people are craving in-person interaction now because we all have been
Yes.
remote for so long. And the third thing is really try to do something super fun for your team at least once. I try to do it at least once a year for a big holiday party. I wish I could do it more often, like once a quarter, but right now we're at once a year. I think last year we did a holiday party at the Sphere, which was cool in Vegas. And that was
Mm.
really a fun thing. But, people look
I was going to
forward to
ask you
it.
about that.
Yeah, people look forward to stuff like that. And it's so fun. And it's something, it creates great memories for you and your team. And then to your other point about what do I do personally, I think I really value like after work that I love like just going to the gym and physically being active because I'm sitting in a chair all day with remote work. That really is helpful for me. And then spending time with my family and friends. So my wife and I love to travel, love to
Mm.
eat at restaurants, play pickleball together. So that kind of stuff. And then hanging out with obviously friends. So you've got to but this is all super, I know, simple, but you've got to make time for it because if you don't, you really do get burnt out. And so, especially probably for everyone listening who's a high achiever, make sure you're making time for all these things.
Yes. And, you said, oh, it's really simple, but guess what? We have to go back to the basics.
Mm.
People have been looking for magic, like just magic. Show me the magic bullet. Show me the miracle that's going to make me efficient, that's going to make me the best, whatever it is, father, mother, sister, brother, leader, that's also going to give me all the sleep in the world, that's going to give me the amazing body. We're all looking for this magical stuff right now. And honestly, in a lot of cases, the answer is go back to the basics. Make sure that you're sleeping. Make sure that you're eating in a way that is right for your body. Make sure that you're moving around. You're right. When we're sitting for 8+ hours a day, we're compressing ourselves. We're losing inches here, people. Yeah. So I really do appreciate what you're sharing with us. And I want to kind of end cap this conversation with a quick scenario. And this scenario is about a manager named Jonathan who just got a new team. And he really wants to find out what are his team's capabilities or strengths, any opportunities for improvement. But he's not really sure how to go about that and what to do because he's new. He's new. So you're in the business of sort of opportunities and capacity and building up people's potential, finding that potential and growing it. Where would you start?
Oh, this is a great question. So, this is something that I personally do when I have new hires at my own company, and I'm trying to gauge kind of their work ethic and output. So, usually, what I'll do is I will assign a kind of a small project. So, it may be, creating some kind of handout or putting together some manual or whatever it may be related to their particular job description, but create some kind of project or deliverable that, your team has to do. And if you have 5 team members, maybe it's 5 different ones, or maybe it's 5 all the same. I don't know. But create a small project and you will learn so much from that person and that deliverable and have a meeting about it. So have a deadline that needs to be turned in on this day. And then we're going to meet on this day to discuss this project, etc. And you will learn so much, one, not only from the deliverable or the project that they turn in, from the quality of the output, obviously is the main thing, but just from how they communicate with you about it. Do they turn it in on time? Are they asking the right questions? All kinds of stuff. And from that, obviously the work output, you might learn that they're an amazing writer. That skill set can be leveraged out, or that they're a great designer. I've had that happen. I'm like, oh, I had no idea that you're such a great designer and you can do this, and let's have you do more, et cetera. So you
Yeah.
learn so much from the work output, and then pay attention to, well, were they late in turning in the project? Did they not ask any questions, et cetera? Did it look like they just started on this the day before, even though I gave them 3 weeks?
Mhm.
There's a lot you can learn, but
Point.
yeah, good and bad. You'll learn good and bad. But usually I learn good, which is great. So that would be my advice. Like, let's give little mini projects to your team, see what they come back with, and that'll give you a great sense of your team's strengths and weaknesses.
Ooh, I love that. I absolutely love that. And what's on the horizon for you and for Prep Expert?
Great question. So at Prep Expert, we've been doing SAT and ACT course prep for 12 years now. And I'm sure many of the parents listening know that colleges went test optional since the pandemic. And so that impacted our
Hmm.
business in a big way. Fewer students were taking these exams. But luckily for us, there's been a huge wave now to reinstate the standardized testing at top colleges like Harvard, Yale, MIT, Caltech. And so we're seeing a wave back. So it's kind of swinging back in the other direction. And we focus now a lot on not only the test prep side, but we're focusing on more the life prep side. So the college, getting into college, getting scholarships, learning those study skills that we talked about today on time management, productivity. So really expanding our horizons beyond just being a test prep company. So if there are any parents listening, please do. If you're interested in SAT courses, ACT courses, college admissions consulting, scholarship help, any of that stuff, head over to prepexpert.com. We'd love to work with any families who have a high schooler.
Sounds good. I actually wasn't aware that they lightened up on those requirements. Oh my goodness. What? Well,
Yeah, that was due to the pandemic, but that's gone now. So everybody got a test prep again.
wow. So you could literally get into school and I mean, the pandemic lasted for about 3 years. Maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still waiting for the official announcement that it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's
Yes.
exactly what happened.
Okay. Dr. Patel, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Yeah, this is fantastic. And I look forward to doing it again someday soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.